Hey everybody, this is John.
And I'm Jess.
Welcome back to the show. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, we'd like to welcome you to Rev It Up with John and Jess. Many of you already know us from our Motor Mania shows and our social media pages.
Yeah, we get around a little bit.
Yeah,
Yes, welcome. We'd like to take a moment to thank our
could have elaborated
sponsors,
on that a minute, but
Joy 1340 and Air Technologies, for allowing us to bring the show to you.
and as we stated, we'll be traveling around to as local and national events to bring them back to you. We'll also be talking with our local shops, builders, and experts in the industry.
And we're not limiting ourselves to any one thing. If it involves a motor, we want to hear about it.
We also invite you, the listeners, to share your experience with us by uploading pictures and videos to our Motor Mania page and potentially be shared on our social media platforms.
And within the next couple of weeks, there will be a public events calendar on our Motor Mania website, so people can submit local show and event information to be added for all to see. Details on how to do that will follow at the end of the show.
So today we are going to discuss a subject that is not only happening here, but of course all over the country. You have seen it on YouTube, social media, or even in your own town or city. I'm talking about, of course, this controversial street racing.
Yeah,
I know you love this.
I do.
You love this, so I brought in, let's see, a couple of our, I guess, do I consider you guys experts, I guess?
No, we're not.
Subjective. I mean, I could be
We're not
an expert.
experts. We're not experts.
All right, joining us today is one of our Motor Mania fan favorites, and everybody is Troy Nichols, right? Is it Nichols? Nicholas, okay. Owner and driver of the famous flat black Abbynormal. And once again, this is Scotty K's really moment to shine. We were kind of debating whether or not to have him back, but you know,
It was a tough decision.
it was a tough decision.
Hey, you made the cut, buddy.
But he
High
made the
five.
cut. So we kind of had to bring these two back together because Scotty K has been around for a long time and a lot of track advocate. You know, love him, hate him, he's here, and builder of a car that I knew him from back in the day, the Grinch. And basically, Jess and I want to know, when did it all start? When did you first start getting involved in street racing?
Oh man, this was back in the 90s.
90s.
Yeah.
Is that when you were roller skating? The videos I see on
Just out of the roller skating. And so yeah, I mean it was really popular back then. It's you know, that's kind of where it, like the, what do you want to say, like the core started, and then
Mhm.
and it evolutioned up until now where it's like, you know, it's getting popular again and stuff like that. So back then it wasn't as organized. It's just you showed up, it was there, it's happening, and now
And-
it's, you know, a little more.
And I think back in the 90s, that is when it kind of revolutionized from a street thing that we knew back then when our parents only did. And I think that's somewhere in the 90s when the fastest streetcar shootout started coming in Hot Rod magazine, is what I believe.
Yeah.
With all the guys, with Sullivan and Rod Sadbury and all those guys. I mean, I remember following those when I was a kid. You know, it was just amazing what they were doing in the streetcar in the street back
Yeah,
then.
it's, you know, and it's, you look back and it's like, it's, you know, the evolution that came back when it started to now, it's just, it's crazy. And it's, you know, it's just, you know, I think now that the cars are faster compared to what they were, I mean, you know, a 13-second car back then in the 90s was fast, you know.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then if you had a 10-second car way back then, that was like, oh man.
Everybody knew about it.
Yeah,
It was,
it's like, but now it's like if you have a, you know, 9-second car, your average Joe.
it's what your girlfriend drives.
Yeah, and then
And,
so,
and it's,
I'm
it's right.
tired.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, yeah.
Ouch.
No, and it's
The
right. I mean, Troy, come on now. I
Oh
mean,
God, yeah, horsepower levels, if you had 800 to 1,000 back then, you were it. You know, now 1,000 horsepower is nothing. You can buy a Hellcat with 800 right off the showroom floor.
right, and that's one thing that we want to talk about too and stress on that. You know, street racing, we see these things, we see the controversy, these kids on the street doing it, and that is one thing we want to definitely separate from what we're talking about with these organized, well-known, well-versed racers as Scotty and Troy and many others that are on the street. These guys have been doing this for a very long time, and where you have it on is shut down organized runs that you have.
Yeah.
Prior events. So that is one thing we definitely want to make sure our listeners and followers know that today. So, Jess, I think you had a question for Scotty.
Yeah, I see you walked in empty-handed. Where's my t-shirt?
oh,
Now we're on week 2.
You're
Still no
fired.
t-shirt. I'm starting to get offended.
Let me just take the marker and put a red flag, a red flag over
Yeah.
here. I don't think it's the
On
first
the
time you've been red
show.
flagged before, Scotty.
That's it,
I'm
you're up to
just
Christmas
teasing, yeah. I'm
list.
glad you guys are here. So tell us about your cars. How did you guys come up with their names for each of yours?
oh, Troy, go ahead.
Well, the movie Young Frankenstein.
Mhm.
And when I first bought the car, it was problematic. So it was always giving us problems. So it was one of those things, it's just abnormal. So from Young Frankenstein, Abbynormal.
I
So
like it.
that's how that came about.
All right, I can get on board with that, Scotty.
Well, when I had the Grinch, it was basically, I got the car, and when we were gonna get it out, and I'm like, and I had it in my head that if I'm racing it, I'm gonna crash it. I don't want it to look good. So I figured I'd get through the first year. If I didn't crash it, if the first year, then I would paint it. But then all of a sudden we started putting it together, and all of a sudden we started piecing body panels together. You know, just different colors from stuff, and you know. And also I'm sitting in the shop one day with Chappie, and I'm going, yeah, this is a Grinch. And he's just like, you know.
It basically named itself, right?
Right, it's you know, he was kind of a, you know, he wanted to paint the car super pretty because that's, you know, that's his role and stuff. And like me, I don't care about prettiness. I mean, it doesn't make you fast. It's just, so we, you know, just kind of stuck with the car, and that's, you know, I mean, I figured if we wreck it, oh well, you know, we could put another color, there's a different color body panel on it. And so at the time, it's like, you know, so yeah, it just, we sat there and we kept thinking. I'm like, yeah, this is Grinch. It's
like
gonna
it.
come in and steal, you know, wreck everybody's, you know, life and walk out.
Do you think that's one thing that's, I mean, as far as I noticed as a follower and a fan of street racing in the industry, back when we were younger, a lot of guys would take a Chevelle or a Camaro that was fully restored. It'd have all beautiful chrome and street trim on it, and it'd be a show car along with running 8-second or 7-second time. Nowadays, I see a lot of flat black, like Abbynormal, the Grinch going in, and you've got a lot of cars where some of the famous ones, like we've got Anthony Smith who comes out with Hercules. That's a matte black car. You know, Nova, Murder Nova, and all that stuff. It seems like a lot of carbon fiber pieces. So the prettiness of the industry is gone. It's just all about the speed and the power now.
Right. I mean, for the average racer, I mean, yeah, it's like, it's the looks isn't, you know, to me, it's like, I think the fad came in, the uglier it is, the better it is. You know what I mean? It's you know,
for sure.
Because if they pull, I mean, I can attest to, you know, there's times where Troy went to race and people looked at his car and just like, really, you know, and then you know. And then, you know, we threw the house at it, and we were sticking right with some of these guys with the, you know, beautiful cars, you know, and they're just, and then they come back and they're like, this is kind of cool, you know?
Yeah,
like,
and you've made quite a name for yourself with Abbynormal here in the last, what, 2-3 years?
Yeah,
It really came
couple
out of nowhere.
years. Well, Scotty's help, and we picked each other's brains sometimes and made each other's head hurt talking. I mean, my brother.
I don't think that talk or really mean much with Scotty, but
Yeah, but it takes a lot of work, you know, and we've done quite well. So, I mean, Scotty's forgot more than I already know, so, but, I mean, test, you gotta just keep moving and try stuff.
yeah, definitely.
Now, when you guys are talking about 9 seconds and 12 seconds and 7 seconds and 13 seconds, are you talking about running on a 8th mile drag or strip or?
So the single digit numbers are going to be more related to like a quarter mile times.
Okay.
So, and then when they do the 8th mile times, it's going to be kind of like almost cut in half. So like, say like a 7-second car will run like 4 to 5 seconds in the 8th mile.
Okay.
So it's just a different calculation. So usually, like, you know, a lot of people can kind of compute, okay, like if you got a 7-second car, they already know how fast, kind of figured out how fast it is in an 8th mile. So
Is that determined by who's organizing the race, as how fast or long it'll be?
yeah, because a lot of guys will like the 8th mile because it's actually a tuner's challenge, because you got to tune, you have
On top of your game.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So and you know, if you know, people race the quarter mile, horsepower, everybody knows horsepower wins. So you can have 2,000 horsepower versus 1,000 horsepower, you know, on the 8th mile, and it'll be equal or pretty close to it, you know.
All right.
So
Learning as I go.
There you go. So perfect example actually is one of the famous videos that are out there from our summer show, is when you actually challenged, you and Anthony challenged each other for a run on a 300-foot run.
Oh God, yeah. He's definitely got more car, more chassis, more motor, but yes, we made it work, stick, and yeah, we just barely beat him.
Yeah, and I mean, those are the moments that'll last forever.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that video, I mean, I don't even know how many views are on our pages for that, but it's amazing. And it's, again, Anthony couldn't get the power to the ground. You got your car to hook and book, and two totally different animals right there, and you got them on the big end at the finish line.
Yes.
Just by, it was just basically by a quarter of a bumper or something like that.
Yeah, it was definitely close, about a bumper.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, he was spinning, and
Yeah.
he was spinning. He put a good burnout content on it. So. But yeah, that's the thing that like Scotty was saying. Lower horsepower if you can get it to stick and just keep it moving. So, and I like how they did that class. No burnout, pull up to the line and go. That really equalizes it.
And I think that's something Jess wants to bring up next is the prep for the no prep. You had a couple questions
Yeah, I
about that.
learned about that the other day, like the specifics of it. I was talking to John the other night, and I guess I didn't realize how much of a science racing is. I had no clue. I'm like, you just pull up to the line and you give her, Apparently not.
Well, part of it is, Troy's been doing this for a long time, so like, what do you mean by prep and no prep? So there's different versions of prep and no prep. So usually prep is pretty much standard where they prep the surface with glue. Doesn't matter if it's on a street, track, whatever they're doing, stuff like that. So so they put a lot of glue down for prep. So that makes the car stick pretty good. So and then the no preps is basically, it can be anything from not putting glue down to scraping a track or scraping a surface, basically taking whatever equalizer out,
Okay.
So, and in that way it's, some people do a water burnout, some people do a burnout in glue, so there's all different versions. So, it's, I guess it all depends on.
Yeah, go to a duck race where you got to put cleats on, otherwise you'll walk out of your shoes. Once you do somebody, seriously, you really
No,
have
that
to.
I've had happen before.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple, Scotty, good friend of ours is Trent also, the one who used to run the, was it COTS?
Anarchy.
Anarchy, I'm sorry, yeah, I remember going down there and, just watching you guys back in the day, and you're in the VIP area, and the track is so sticky, you guys are walking on their flip-flops and they're losing them because the track is so, and going in there, so it's definitely a science for that. What do you think is the big difference between the old school when we started running at high school and now? I know we're talking about horsepower and creativity and I guess drivability of these cars, because before when we had 8-9 second cars, we could barely drive these things 20 years ago. Now the technology, a lot of you guys don't even know, but most of you guys, you run yours off a laptop, a lot of you guys run off a laptop. Back in the day we were just tuning cars. Now they're
Well, it was trial and error back then. There was not a lot of the information, books, or now you can go online and see the technology. It is a lot of geometry. You almost have to be an engineer now. Back in the day, you would try something, and there wasn't the parts available either, like there is now. There's so many companies now that specializes in parts for specific types of racing. So.
Did you just say that geometry is used after high school?
Oh God! If you don't, I have a book.
Right.
I grew
It's the
around-
big one. I'm coming up. I can't believe it. Yeah.
No, it truly is. I have a book from the '70s from my dad with all the math formulas and geometry, and if you can't figure that out, you're not going to go fast. It really is technical.
It's really great to hear because one of our other friends of ours, Don Garlis from the museum down there, he would say that back in the day when he started creating the swamp rat and stuff like that, where he has become a legend, obviously, all over the country and all the world. That is it's a math game. It's geometry.
Yes.
Horsepower versus torque versus. You can have all the power in the world, but if it doesn't go, you don't have a transmission, rear end, and of course tires, which we'll talk about next. If it doesn't go to the ground, you're going nowhere.
Correct.
I guess I'll have to change the narrative with my kids about how you will possibly use geometry after high school.
Oh yeah.
Yes, you will.
Well, so now I can say, so I can become a street racer.
Is that what we're like, yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't think you use it as much as you do, but there's times where we would string his car out and we'd measure, just all this kind of stuff, and then we'd figure out instant centers and, weight proportion and like all kinds of stuff, so.
Interesting, all right.
Yeah, and and I'm not a really good math whiz, but they really, that's what makes our head hurt, because we'll be like, oh, well, if we do this, and then so then we start thinking about stuff and measurements and all this other stuff, so.
And
Newton's theory. For every action, there's a reaction, and sometimes it's a compromise. You can gain in one spot, but you'll lose in another one.
Mm-hmm.
So strings all over the car and just points, geometry. Yeah, it's quite interesting if you're into that engineering.
And I think that's one of the biggest things where I've always respected this industry, and because a lot of people think, okay, guy's got a loud car, he's racing, he's doing whatever, he's just a dirty dirt bag or something like that. That was way back when.
Dirty dirt bag.
Well, you know what I'm saying, whatever, however you want to put it. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if you're the mom and dad, and all of a sudden some guy comes pulling up. Let's face it, if Zyler comes,
Greaser,
yeah,
doing a Milner,
the
one
greaser,
arm
yeah,
hand,
doing the Milner, like, yeah.
cigarette rolled up in your shirt sleeve.
Yeah, the Milner, and somebody comes pulling up with a primered 5.0 Mustang, that's got flame shooting outside of it. I'm like, my daughter's not hopping in that car. And here he's got more knowledge and more skill on that than any, you know what I'm saying? It's just a lot of respect with it. Goes all the way down to chassis engineering and everything you guys do. It's just
But that's
amazing.
kind of old school too, having an old looking ratty car that was, especially in street racing, drag racing at the track, there's a lot of pretty cars. But on the street, you really kind of want to disguise the car. You don't want it to look fast. So
Now let's talk rules. Are there different rules for different races, or is there like unspoken rules, or are there like assumed rules? As soon as I pulled up to the starting line, there's like an unwritten rule of what I need to do or not do.
So, first unwritten rules, sometimes there is no rules, and then just
the first rule of Fight Club.
so I
That's
guess
my kind of life.
the first rule of thumb is you read whatever the rules they put in for that race or that type of race.
So there's something that people coming in from out of the area could be like, okay, this is what I'm looking at.
So just for an example, so like an average race that we race in will be 10.5 tire, no W, and it's gotta be a 28-inch tall. So it can, and that's pretty much the only limiting factor. So if they have the tire, they're allowed to race. But if they're, if they don't, if their tire kind of veers one way or the other, different size, no, that doesn't really fly. I mean, but there are sometimes they'll do starting line rules, like where you can't do a burnout across the starting line, or you can't use glue to put down, or you can't, so I guess it all depends on who's throwing the race, or what race you're going to and stuff like that. It's gonna, so the rules are gonna be real limited for the most part for like anything like grudge racing.
Okay.
So otherwise, if they get too many rules, and people complain, and
I want to move, you gotta spot me a car. I mean, there's some when you're setting up races, if you're faster, they know you're faster, they'll always want something, let me go first, and you chase. So there's a lot of variables if you're on the street versus like class racing.
So very good point. Actually, we were talking there right about old school racing and how we grew up on one of the local streets or you're in the north side here, and back in the day, it would always be somebody always had the faster car and a slower car. So explain a little bit. I know it, but to Jess and the other fellows. So if somebody goes in and they want to give you, say, all right, you're so much faster, I want 5 cars, I want 6 cars. Is it an advantage to the cars going? You let him go 6 cars in, and you go 6 cars back, like, because we've all seen this,
where they set them out,
they stretch them out because if he goes farther out, then he's going to go faster on the big end. I mean, is this a strategy you have used before?
Oh God, yeah. Sometimes if you want to set somebody out, you set them forward where there's no rubber, no traction, and you're way back. So I mean, you can actually leave where there's some rubber down and traction. So sometimes setting them out isn't, good for them. They'll actually spin instead of getting some traction.
And hence the experience comes in and the hustle on the play.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely, definitely.
Because they might think they're getting advantage because they're 4 cars in, you're 4 out. You're going to get more traction, and you're going to get more length to come out on the big end and get them.
Correct. A lot of times if you see videos like that, usually by 60 feet, the guy who was behind is in front of the car.
Correct. I've seen it many times. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because it's amazing to see. Because and of course, as Jess and I talked, it's always about what is the more of the notoriety for you? Is it about the cash prize, or is it about the respect on the street?
That's going to be my next question. Is there always a cash prize, or?
No, sometimes we race some people for the fun, just for bragging rights. It depends on if it's a friend, someone you know.
Sure.
So, but yeah, then there's sometimes, there's money involved.
That smile on your face just got twice as
you
big.
win some, you lose some. So we've done good. We've had good days, bad days. So, and like back to what you were saying, a lot of times it's called setting them and getting them. You set them out there and get them. So, but yeah, it's a lot of notoriety.
Sure.
What do you guys do to ensure safety?
Well, in all reality, what we practice at the track, we practice anywhere. Basically, same stuff that you would have, like helmet, fire jacket, gloves, pants, obviously seatbelts, roll cage, everything you could think of, that our group, like Troy's on our group does. That's the first thing, kind of like, before, because there's guys out there, just they throw their helmet on, don't strap it in. They got shorts and t-shirts, sweatpants, and I don't care where you're at or any event. Anything can happen.
Absolutely.
And we've seen some terrible stuff happen, on the streets. We've seen terrible stuff happen at the track. So with that saying that, he's got a Hans device. He wears that regardless. So that keeps your head, stationary. So if anything would happen, that's your first defense of being safe, But yeah, like I said, we practice. I know a lot of other people don't, but we practice trying to be as safe as we can. The other thing too is like even being around cars and stuff like that, we make sure that we're not in, what do you want to say, harm's way.
Yeah, because anything can happen. Cars, you can break an axle, go left, right, blow something up, parts will come down and bounce onto the ground and out.
Sure.
You've seen some videos where the transmission blows up.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of things, and we've been lucky with even the races at the track, COTS, where you would do a burnout through a crowd of people. It was just, you got to block it out, and then they stand on the wall. And
Is that intimidating to you when you
block
that out?
You have to block that out. You have to. If you have to think, you're not going to go fast. You're going to make mistakes.
You're going to make mistakes.
So.
And another thing, Jess, is that we touch on the safety aspect of it. When you're going to a track, and the guys here will refer to the rules, but you have to pass a tech inspection before you get on the track.
Oh.
I think
Yes.
anything, is it $12.99 under, $11.99 under? They got to start getting into real technical stuff. Is that still the rules were?
They still have a basic. If you go to the track, they still have like a basic tech thing. So, so basically, what they'll do is they'll follow by that, usually NHRA book.
Okay. And you're still active for a couple more weeks yet here?
Oh yeah. Yep. Hey, Halloween's Abby's time to shine.
Abby's time to shine. And so one last thing I'm going to touch base on is your team. It takes more than just you driving. You don't just show up on your trailer and drive the car. Like
Right.
you have I've seen you on the street. I've seen you on a track at our shows. You have a crew of 4 to 5 people to run one car.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's always minimum 2. My brother is always there. Friend who's an engineer, Mike Wetzel. I won't do it without them. You can't. How fast we're going and how technical things are, you have to. It's not like the old days. You could just roll up to a burnout and go.
Yeah, the game has changed.
Yes, so you have to.
And again, we want to elaborate for any of our listeners or any of our followers that these are really well-versed racers, shops that you guys have been doing this for a long time. This is not what the main reason we did the subject today is because we want to separate from the things that people say street racing on these kids that are just doing on the street.
Running the red lights and endangering
If you
other
want
people.
to, if you're running red lights and this stuff, these guys are actually organized racers. Like you don't drive Abby to work every day and just take on somebody at Culver's when you're
Yeah.
when
No.
Even though you want
Yeah.
to.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm late for work.
I
Late to
kind
get
of
back.
used to do that, but
Yeah.
now it's just kind of,
Yeah,
you mellow with
it's-
age, but yeah.
And we want to get back to respect of doing this. That is not, so that's a big thing. Jess, you got a couple fun facts for the guys here?
I have one.
What do you got?
Did you know that the first commercial
Yeah.
drag strip in the US opened?
Yeah, see what the guys know.
Do you know where and when?
I do.
Okay, no, I don't.
If I'm not mistaken, since Great Lakes Dragway is the longest and oldest running,
That I do know. It's about 100 and some years it's been in business and functioning.
so I'm gonna shoot for GLD.
According to the interwebs,
You're
it was
close.
opened in Santa Ana, California on an airfield in 1950.
Oh,
So
Okay.
Scotty is correct in a roundabout way.
Okay.
GLD is the oldest active drag strip in the United States. Yes.
Yes.
So Santa Ana was the first airfield that they actually had a sanctioned drag race on in 1950 that they considered it to be a drag strip, but GLD was the first actual fans paying customers and everything.
Yeah.
So,
My old boss actually helped build GLD for the when originally that
So
he
you don't
helped.
know.
Yeah, so he designed it. He had pictures of when they were putting pavement down. Like he actually designed the drain that she actually designed. Like
Wow.
yeah, so it was like he was part of the car club that actually built Great Lakes Dragway.
Cool.
well, we want to thank you boys both for coming on, and we'd also like to, and good luck in all the future endeavors, and stay safe.
Yeah.
And one thing we would like to give a shout out for this past week, pay our respects to, is the family of Gary, I believe Ted Key, the owner of Scotty's Bar and Pizzeria on 27th Street. A lot of famous stuff. Gary passed away this last week, so we want to give our
Condolences to the family
family
and friends, yeah.
of a local hot rodder.
For
And-
upcoming shows, we got the McCacken Show in Illinois on November 19th and 20th at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont. We will be there covering the show and doing some interviews, so if you guys are walking around, stop by and say hello.
Maybe get a shirt. Yeah. And again, we want to share. Thanks guys for coming in, and a big thanks to our sponsors, Air Technologies. To our listeners, we appreciate you both for tuning in today with Rev It Up with John and Jess. You may find us at the www.themotormania.com or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Rumble underneath Motormania. If you have any more show ideas, questions, or comments, or want to be a guest on the show, send me a message at john@themotormania.com.
And if you want to holler at me, you can reach me at jess@themotormania.com. I'd love to hear some ideas from you. Join us next Sunday at 1:30 p.m. when we talk with Michael Beal and Sierra Bub from Top Fuel Garage in Kewaskum here on Joy 1340. Remember, in the words of Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last.
No, Lordy. Until next week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.